Good morning and welcome. Today I want to talk about a story that changed the course of spiritual history for millions around the world. It's a story about a woman who was dying, who discovered a truth that could heal her, and who then did something extraordinary. She practiced that truth every single day for 2 years before her healing was complete. 2 years of daily spiritual practice while her body still showed her evidence of disease. 2 years of affirming truth while her circumstances screamed otherwise. 2 years of faith without seeing the results. That woman was Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity. And her story is radically different from what we usually hear in today's spiritual marketplace. Today we hear about instant manifestation and rapid transformation. We hear, do this affirmation and watch your life change overnight. And look, I get it. My oft-told joke is that my only complaint with instant gratification is that it takes too long. But Myrtle's story teaches us something our instant everything culture desperately needs to hear. Real spiritual transformation takes time, consistency, and a kind of faith that persists even when you can't see any evidence that it's working. Today we're going to explore what real faith looks like and why spiritual practice matters in an age of shrinking attention spans, and what we might miss out on if we give up too soon. So to start, let me paint the picture. It's 1886. Myrtle Fillmore is 40 years old, married to Charles, mother of 2 young boys, and she's dying. She has tuberculosis, what they called consumption in those days. It's a death sentence. Doctors have told her she has maybe 6 months to live. Her lungs are failing. She's weak, coughing, fading. Her own mother died of tuberculosis. It runs in the family, they say. It's hereditary. It's inevitable. Myrtle is preparing to die. But then she attends a lecture by Dr. E.B. Weeks, a student of Emma Curtis Hopkins in the New Thought movement. And Dr. Weeks says something that strikes Myrtle like lightning. You are a child of God, and therefore you do not inherit sickness. I want to repeat that. You are a child of God, and therefore you do not inherit sickness. Myrtle had been told her whole life that she inherited weakness from her mother, that disease ran in her family, that her body was fundamentally flawed. And in one sentence, Dr. Weeks offered a completely different understanding. If God is her true parent, if she is made in the divine image, then what she inherits is wholeness. What she inherits is strength. What she inherits is life. That idea lit a fire in Myrtle's soul. She went home and began to practice. Every day she would affirm truth statements like, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. I am spirit, and spirit cannot be sick. She would speak these truths to every cell of her body. She made it her practice, her daily spiritual work. And here's what's crucial. The change came gradually. It wasn't instantly. Her lungs didn't suddenly clear after a week of affirmation. Her energy didn't magically return after a month. The doctors didn't declare her healed after 3 months. She kept coughing. She remained weak. The physical evidence continued to suggest she was dying. But Myrtle kept practicing day after day for 2 years. 2 years! And gradually, slowly, incrementally, her body began to respond. The coughing eased, strength returned, her lungs cleared. And after 2 years of consistent daily spiritual practice, Myrtle Fillmore was completely healed. She lived another 45 years, healthy and vital, dedicating her life to teaching others what she had learned. That healing didn't just save Myrtle's life, it became the foundation for unity. It proved that spiritual truth isn't just beautiful philosophy, it's practical. It works, but it requires practice. So what kept Myrtle going for 2 years when she couldn't see the evidence that her practice was working? Faith. But we need to be clear about what faith actually means, because in our culture, faith has gotten confused with hope or wishful thinking. Hope says, I really want this to be true. I'm trying to believe it. Please let it work. Faith says, this is true. Whether I can see it yet or not, I know it, and I'm aligning myself with it. Hope is uncertain and fearful. Faith is certain and peaceful. Hope depends on seeing results to keep believing. Faith believes first and then sees results as a natural consequence of that belief. Hebrews 11:1 defines faith beautifully. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. The substance, the evidence. Faith is the evidence, the substance, when physical circumstances haven't caught up yet. Myrtle had this kind of faith. She had a deep, unshakable knowing that what Dr. Weeks said was true, even though her body was currently manifesting the opposite. She was denying that sickness was her true nature, her inheritance, her reality at the spiritual level, and she was persistently, consistently aligning her consciousness with that deeper truth. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it, and it will be yours." Believe that you have received it. Present tense. Already done at the spiritual level, even if the physical hasn't caught up yet. That's faith. That's what Myrtle practiced. And that kind of faith requires something our culture is running dangerously low on. Some things I'm not great with, and that's patience, persistence, and willingness to practice without immediate rewards. We live in an age of instant everything. Want to watch a movie? Stream it. Want food? Microwave it or get delivery. Want information? Google it or go to your favorite AI. Want entertainment? Scroll infinitely on social media. Every post on there is designed to give you a tiny dopamine hit in a matter of seconds. Our brains have been literally rewired for instant gratification. Studies show that the average human attention span has dropped from a whopping 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds today. 8 seconds. That's shorter than a goldfish. We've become addicted to instant results and immediate feedback, and this addiction has infected our spiritual lives. We want instant enlightenment. Many do affirmations for a week and wonder why their lives haven't completely transformed, or meditate for a month and get frustrated that they're not permanently peaceful, or read a spiritual book and expect to be a different person by the last page. And when we don't see instant results, many quit or move on to the next technique, the next teacher, the next promise of rapid transformation. But here's the truth that Myrtle's story teaches us. Real spiritual transformation happens through practice. Daily, consistent, persistent practice. The word practice is key here. We say, I practice meditation or I practice prayer. Practice implies ongoing, repeated action. It implies we're still learning and growing, still developing. You don't learn to play piano by playing once and expecting to be a virtuoso. You practice daily for years. You practice scales that are boring and repetitive. You practice pieces that are beyond your current skill level. You practice even when you don't feel like it, even when you sound terrible, even when you can't see improvement day to day. But over time, with consistent practice, something miraculous happens. Your fingers start finding the right keys automatically. The music starts flowing through you. What was once difficult becomes natural. That's what spiritual practice does. It rewires our consciousness. It creates new neural pathways and aligns us with truth so consistently that eventually truth becomes our default setting. But if we quit after a week because we don't see results, we miss the miracle. So if we don't have the discipline to practice faith in the way that Myrtle did, what is it costing us? Because here's something crucial. Myrtle's healing didn't just happen at the end of 2 years. That transformation was happening every single day that she practiced. Every time she affirmed truth to herself, she was changing her consciousness. Every time she chose to align with her spiritual identity rather than her physical circumstances, she was growing stronger spiritually. The healing of her body was the visible result, but the real miracle was the healing of her consciousness, her understanding, her relationship with God. That was happening all along, even when she couldn't see physical evidence. If she'd quit after a month, she would have missed that deep transformation. She might have gotten discouraged and thought, see, this spiritual stuff doesn't work. But the truth is, it was working, just not on her timetable. Think about physical exercise. You don't build muscle by lifting weights once. You build muscle by creating tiny tears in the muscle fibers through repeated resistance. And then those fibers heal stronger. The resistance is necessary, the repetition is necessary, and the consistency is necessary. Spiritual practice works the same way. When we practice faith without seeing results, we're building spiritual muscle. We're developing the capacity to trust truth over appearances. We're strengthening our ability to persist through difficulty. And we're learning to stand firm in knowing, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. That strength doesn't come from instant results. It comes from the discipline of continuing when you don't see results. If Myrtle had been healed instantly, she wouldn't have developed that depth of faith, that unshakable knowing, that spiritual strength that allowed her to spend the next 45 years helping others heal. When everything is instant and easy, we stay surface level. We don't need to dig deep. We don't need to really trust, and we don't need to surrender. But when we practice faithfully for 2 years while still appearing sick, that requires deep trust. It requires constant conversations with the divine, and it requires surrendering outcomes while trusting the process. Myrtle's 2-year journey wasn't just about healing her body. It was about deepening her understanding of God, of spiritual law, of her own divine nature. She learned things in those 2 years that instant healing would never have taught her. If she had been instantly healed, her story would be interesting, but perhaps not as powerful. Woman goes to lecture, says affirmation, healed immediately. That sounds a bit like magic. Or maybe she got lucky. Or like maybe it wouldn't work for others. But woman practices daily for 2 years while appearing to get worse before finally healing completely. That's a different story. That's a testimony to the power of persistent practice. That's proof that this is about principle and law and consistent alignment with truth. And her story has helped millions of people over the last 130 plus years persist in their own practice, to not give up, to trust the process even when they can't see results. Here's something beautiful and mysterious. The timing of our healing, our breakthrough, our transformation is part of the gift. Myrtle needed those 2 years, not because God was testing her or making her prove herself, but because the 2 years shaped her into who she needed to be to fulfill her purpose. If she had been healed instantly, she might not have developed the teaching gift, the depth of understanding and compassion, or the wisdom that allowed her to co-found Unity and help millions of others. What if your delay isn't a delay at all? What if it's preparation? If the practice itself is transforming you into who you need to be to receive and steward the blessings you're seeking. When we give up too soon, we might miss the very miracle that was meant not just to change our circumstances, but to change us. So why does spiritual practice matter so much, especially in our instant gratification culture? Because practice is how we lay a foundation that can support the life we're calling forth. When you think about building a house, you don't start with the roof, you start with the foundation. You dig deep. You pour concrete, you let it cure, which takes time. It's not exciting. Most people don't see it, but without that foundation, the house will collapse. Spiritual practice is foundation work. Meditation, prayer, and affirmation are the foundation we're laying for a consciousness that can sustain health, abundance, love, peace, and purpose. Myrtle wasn't just trying to heal her tuberculosis. She was building a consciousness of health, a consciousness of divine identity, and one of spiritual truth that would sustain her for the rest of her life. And here's what happens when you build that foundation through consistent practice. When challenge comes, you don't crumble. When circumstances suggest limitations, you don't believe it. When the world is chaotic, you still have inner peace because you've practiced. You've laid the foundation. You've trained your consciousness to align with truth. Practice creates I can't say this word, makes it automatic. There we go. In neuroscience, there's a concept called automaticity, when something you've practiced so much becomes automatic, requiring no conscious effort. When you first learned to drive, you had to think about every movement, but after years of practicing, driving becomes automatic. You don't consciously think, press brake, turn wheel, check mirror. You just drive. Spiritual practice creates that same automatic behavior in your consciousness. When you've affirmed, I am a child of God, thousands of times over months or years, it becomes your automatic setting. You don't have to work to remember it. It's just who you know yourself to be. That's what happened to Myrtle. After 2 years of practice, I am spirit and spirit cannot be sick, wasn't just something she said. It was her automatic understanding of herself, and her body had no choice but to align with her consciousness. Practice rewires the brain. Neuroscience has proven what spiritual teachers have always known. Our brains are plastic, changeable, constantly forming new neural pathways based on what we repeatedly think and do. Every time you practice an affirmation, you're creating a neural pathway. The first time is like a walk through a forest when there's no path. Difficult, slow, requiring constant conscious effort. But if you walk that same route every day, eventually you create a well-worn path, then a trail, then a road, until it becomes the default route your brain takes. But this rewiring takes time and repetition. One walk through the forest doesn't create a path. Consistent walking day after day creates a path. Myrtle was literally rewiring her brain, creating new neural pathways of health, consciousness, divine identity and spiritual truth. But that rewiring required repetition over time. If we quit too soon because we don't see instant results, we never create those new pathways or rewire our consciousness. We stay stuck in the old patterns. Practice builds faith through experience. Here's something beautiful. The more you practice, the more you experience small evidences that the practice is working. Maybe not the big miracle yet, but little shifts, a moment of peace in the middle of chaos, a sudden insight, a gentle opening, a small healing. Those small experiences build faith. They give you the evidence you need to keep practicing. And as your faith grows through these small experiences, you become capable of bigger miracles. Myrtle probably experienced small improvements along the way, maybe a day with less coughing, or a moment of unexpected strength, or a night with better sleep. These weren't complete healings, but they were evidence of something shifting, and that evidence probably encouraged her to keep practicing. That's how faith builds. Not through giant leaps, but through consistent small steps, where each step gives you the faith to take the next one. So let's take time now to embody this quality of long faithfulness, of patient practice, of faith that persists without seeing evidence yet. So find a comfortable position and allow your eyes to close or your gaze to soften. Take a deep breath in, and as you release, let your body settle into this moment. Take another deep breath in, and as you breathe out, bring your awareness to your breath. Notice it moving in and out. And now imagine you can see the trillions of cells that make up your physical form, each one alive, each one listening, each one responding to consciousness. This is what Myrtle did. She spoke to her cells about their true nature. Let's practice this now. Speak silently to your cells, to every cell in your lungs, your heart, your bones, and your blood. You are made of God. You are divine substance. You inherited wholeness. You inherit life. You inherit perfect intelligence. Feel how your cells respond. They're listening. What you tell them consistently over time, they believe. Now imagine Myrtle beside you, her hand on your shoulder. She's radiant, healthy, fully alive. And she says, I did this every day for 2 years while my body still showed me disease. I did it because I knew it was true. Continue speaking to yourselves now. Tell them who they really are. You are spirit. You are made in the image and likeness of God. You are whole. You are healthy. You are strong. You are divine. This is recognition. You're recognizing what has always been true, even when appearances suggested otherwise. Feel the life force moving through every cell. Feel the intelligence. Feel the responsiveness. Your cells are receiving this truth. Transformation is happening right now. This is practice and faith. This is what you can do today and tomorrow and the day after, as many days as it takes. Now we're going to move into a moment of silence. Rest in this awareness of your cells responding to truth. As we return from the silence, take one more deep breath and slowly become aware of the room around you. Wiggle a little bit if you'd like. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Myrtle Fillmore practiced for 2 years before her healing was complete. 2 years of daily affirmation while her body still showed disease. And here's what matters. She didn't know it would take 2 years. She didn't have a guarantee. She just had a truth that lit a fire in her soul, and she practiced that truth every single day until her body caught up with her consciousness. What if she'd quit after 6 months, after a year, after 18 months? She would have missed her own miracle, and she might have died believing that spiritual practice didn't work, when the truth is it was working all along. It just required more time. We live in a world that has trained us to give up quickly, to move on to the next thing, to scroll past anything that doesn't grab us in 8 seconds. But real transformation, the kind that changes not just our circumstances, but our consciousness, doesn't happen in 8 seconds. It happens through practice. Daily, consistent, faithful practice. So here's my invitation to you. What's the one spiritual practice you've started and stopped a dozen times? What's the truth you've affirmed for a week and then abandoned because you didn't see instant results? Go back to it with faith, knowing it's true whether you see evidence yet or not. Practice every day because you're aligning with truth, because you're building a foundation, because you're rewiring your consciousness, because transformation is happening even when you can't see it yet. Maybe it will take 2 years, maybe 5. But here's what I know. If you quit too soon, you'll never find out what miracle was waiting for you on the other side of persistent practice. Stay faithful. Keep practicing. Your cells are listening. The universe is responding. Transformation is happening. And so it is. Thank you for being here.